Sarah Mitchell looked at her watch for the third time in 5 minutes. She was running late, and Mrs. Henderson did not like it when people were late. The piano teacher clutched the folder of sheet music tighter against her chest as she hurried through the parking lot. Her old car had broken down again that morning, so she had to take 2 buses to get to the Riverside Country Club. The place was far from her small apartment in the city. The country club was nothing like the places Sarah usually went. Tall white columns stood at the entrance. Perfectly trimmed bushes lined the walkways. Expensive cars filled the parking lot. Mercedes, BMWs, and even a few Rolls-Royces sat gleaming in the afternoon sun. Sarah felt out of place in her simple blue dress and worn shoes. She had bought the dress at a thrift store 3 years ago. It was the nicest thing she owned. She pushed through the heavy glass doors and stepped into the lobby. Her breath caught in her throat. The floor was made of white and gold marble that shined like a mirror. A massive chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals catching the light and throwing rainbows across the walls. Leather couches sat in groups around the room. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked like it cost more than Sarah made in a year. A woman in a black suit rushed past Sarah, talking quickly into a phone. She was moving fast, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Sarah stepped aside to let her pass. She looked around for the front desk but could not see it. The lobby was bigger than her entire apartment. There were hallways leading in different directions, and she was not sure which way to go. Sarah walked toward what looked like a reception area. A young man in a crisp white shirt stood behind a tall desk. Before she could reach him, someone grabbed her arm. Sarah jumped in surprise. She turned to see a thin woman with bright red lipstick and a clipboard. The woman looked stressed. Her eyes were wide and her forehead was covered in sweat. "Finally. Where have you been? We're already running behind schedule," the woman said. She did not wait for Sarah to answer. Instead, she started pulling Sarah down one of the hallways. Sarah tried to pull her arm free, but the woman's grip was strong. "Wait, I think there's been a mistake," Sarah said. She tried to stop walking, but the woman kept pulling her forward. "I'm just here to drop off some music for my student. Mrs. Henderson's granddaughter takes lessons from me." The woman was not listening. She was looking at her clipboard and muttering to herself. "The flowers are late, the caterer is asking about the dietary restrictions, and now the pianist shows up late. This is a disaster. Mr. Ashford is going to be furious. But I'm not a pianist. I mean, I am, but I'm not here to play. I'm just dropping off sheet music," Sarah explained. They were moving faster now, and Sarah was almost running to keep up. Her folder of music pressed awkwardly against her side. "Don't be modest. We're paying good money for this event. Just play what's on the list and stay in the background. Mr. Ashford wants elegant, not loud. Can you do that?" The woman finally stopped walking. They stood outside 2 large wooden doors. Sarah could hear voices and laughter coming from inside. Lots of voices. Lots of laughter. "Please, you don't understand. I'm not who you think I am," Sarah said. Her heart was beating fast. This was all wrong. She needed to leave, to find Mrs. Henderson, to get out of here. The woman looked at Sarah for the first time. Really looked at her. Her eyes moved from Sarah's face down to her simple dress and old shoes. Something changed in her expression. It was not quite disgust, but it was close. It was the look of someone who thought they were better than you. Sarah had seen that look before. She saw it a lot. "Look, I don't care if you think you're too good for this job. We hired entertainment, and you're going to entertain. Mr. Ashford's daughter is getting engaged today. This is one of the biggest events of the season. Just go in there and play the piano. Stay quiet, stay in the background, and don't cause any trouble. Can you manage that?" The woman's voice had gone cold. Before Sarah could answer, the woman pushed open the doors. The sound of laughter and conversation rushed out like a wave. The woman put her hand on Sarah's back and pushed her inside. Sarah stumbled forward a few steps. The doors closed behind her with a soft click. The room was enormous. It was the biggest room Sarah had ever seen. The ceiling was high, maybe 30 feet up. Another chandelier hung there, even bigger than the one in the lobby. Round tables covered in white cloth filled the space. Each table had tall vases with white roses and gold ribbons. At least 100 people stood around talking, drinking from crystal glasses. Everyone wore expensive clothes. The men had suits that fit perfectly. The women wore dresses that probably cost more than Sarah's car. Sarah stood frozen near the door. She still held her folder of sheet music. A few people glanced at her, but most ignored her. She was clearly not one of them. She did not belong here. Sarah took a step back toward the door. She would just slip out. She would find another way to reach Mrs. Henderson. This was all a big mistake. You there. What are you doing just standing around? A loud voice cut through the conversations. Sarah looked up. A man was walking toward her. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, with gray hair slicked back from his face. His suit was dark blue and looked like it had been made just for him. A gold watch flashed on his wrist. He had the kind of walk that said he owned everything around him. His face showed annoyance. Sarah opened her mouth to explain, but the man did not give her a chance. He snapped his fingers at her like she was a dog. The piano is over there. We're ready for some background music, something classy. Can you handle that? Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not here to play. I'm a piano teacher, and I just came to drop off some music for my student, Sarah said. She tried to keep her voice calm and polite. Her hands were shaking slightly. The man's eyebrows went up. He looked at her like she had said something stupid. Then he smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone about to say something mean. A piano teacher? Well, that's perfect then. You know how to play, don't you? So play. Other people were starting to watch now. Sarah felt her face getting hot. I really can't. I'm not hired entertainment. This is all a mistake. I should go, the man laughed. It was a loud, sharp laugh. He turned to the people standing near him. Did you hear that? She says she can't play. A piano teacher who can't play piano. The people around him laughed too. Not all of them, but enough. Sarah felt her stomach twist. Victor, maybe we should just let her go, a woman's voice said. Sarah looked over and saw a younger woman, maybe in her late 20s. She had dark hair and wore a beautiful cream-colored dress. She looked uncomfortable. This is supposed to be my engagement party. Let's not make a scene. The man, Victor, waved his hand dismissively. Nonsense, Melissa. We're paying for entertainment. This young lady says she's a piano teacher. She should be honored to play for us. It's not every day someone from her background gets to perform at a place like this. He looked back at Sarah. His smile was still there, but his eyes were cold. Come on, don't be shy. Play us something. I'll even tip you. How does $20 sound? That's probably good money for you, right? Some people laughed again. Others looked away. Sarah felt something break inside her chest. It was not just embarrassment anymore. It was humiliation. This man was trying to make her look small in front of all these people. He was doing it on purpose. He thought it was funny. Sarah looked at the piano. It sat on a small raised platform at the side of the room. It was a Steinway, she could tell from here. A beautiful instrument, black and polished until it shined. She had not played a piano that nice in years, not since before everything fell apart. Her mind raced. She could run. She could just turn around and run out of here. But that would make Victor laugh even more. It would prove whatever point he was trying to make. That she was beneath him. That people like her did not matter. That she was just someone to be pushed around and laughed at. Or she could play. Sarah took a slow breath. She looked at Victor. He was still smiling that mean smile. His friends stood around him like a pack of well-dressed wolves. Melissa, his daughter, looked like she wanted to disappear. A few other people in the crowd looked uncomfortable too, but no one was saying anything. No one was going to help her. Fine, Sarah said quietly. I'll play. Victor clapped his hands together. Wonderful. See everyone? I told you we'd have entertainment. Come gather around. Let's hear what our piano teacher can do. He made a grand gesture toward the piano like he was being generous, like he was giving Sarah some great gift. Sarah walked across the room. The crowd parted to let her through. She could feel their eyes on her. Some looked curious. Some looked amused. Some looked embarrassed for her. She kept her head up and her back straight. Her father had always told her to stand tall no matter what. He said dignity was something no one could take from you unless you gave it away. The piano sat waiting. Sarah climbed the 3 steps to the small platform. She set her folder of sheet music on top of the piano. Her hands were still shaking. She pulled out the bench and sat down. The room behind her had gone quieter. People were watching now. Really watching. Waiting to see what would happen. Sarah looked down at the keys. They were perfect. Clean and white. Memories came flooding back. She was 8 years old, sitting at a piano for the first time. Her mother stood beside her, guiding her small fingers to the right keys. The sound had been magic, She was 12, performing in her first recital. Her father sat in the front row, his face glowing with pride. She was 16, getting the letter from Juilliard, a full scholarship. Her parents had cried happy tears. She was 19, playing for a crowd of hundreds. The music had flowed through her like water, like breathing. She was 21, standing in a hospital hallway. The doctor was saying words like accident and didn't suffer and so sorry for your loss. She was 22, in her parents' empty house, packing up their things. The piano sat in the corner, silent. She could not bear to play it. She was 28, sitting in a country club, about to play for people who thought she was nothing. Sarah opened her eyes. She placed her hands on the keys. Behind her, someone whispered something. Someone else laughed softly. Victor's voice carried across the room. "Anytime you're ready, dear. We don't have all day." Sarah pressed down on the first key. The note rang out pure and clear. It filled the room like light. Sarah's fingers found the next note, then the next. Chopin. Nocturne in E-flat major. She had learned this piece when she was 14. She had played it at her mother's funeral. Her hands remembered, but Sarah was not just playing the notes. She was putting herself into them. Every lonely night in her small apartment. Every double shift she had worked to pay bills. Every time she had looked at her reflection and wondered what happened to that girl who was going to be a concert pianist. Every moment she had sacrificed her dreams to take care of her younger brother after their parents died. Every tear she had cried when she thought no one was watching. All of it went into the music. The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy. Sarah kept playing. She added her own changes to Chopin's piece. She made it hers. Made it about loss and hope and survival. Her fingers moved faster, then slower. Soft, then strong. The piano seemed to come alive under her hands. She did not look up. She did not see the champagne glass that stopped halfway to someone's lips. She did not see the conversation that died mid-sentence. She did not see Victor's smile slowly fade. She did not see Melissa's hand go to her mouth. She did not see the elderly woman in the pearl necklace lean forward in her chair. She did not see any of it. Sarah only saw the keys, only felt the music. For the first time in 7 years, she was not a struggling piano teacher riding 2 buses to make ends meet. She was not an orphan. She was not tired. She was not small. She was a pianist. She was music. She was everything she used to be and everything she could have been. The last note hung in the air like a question. Then it faded. Slowly, gently, until there was only silence. Sarah sat very still. Her hands rested on the keys. Her chest rose and fell with her breathing. The room behind her was so quiet she could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Then someone started clapping. It was slow at first. One person, then another. Then the sound exploded. Everyone was clapping. The sound was like thunder. Sarah lifted her hands from the keys. She turned around slowly on the bench. The room was transformed. People were standing. All of them. Clapping. Some of the women had tears on their faces. The men looked shocked. Even the waiters had stopped working to listen. They clapped too. In the middle of the crowd stood Victor. His hands were at his sides. He was not clapping. His face was red. His mouth was open slightly. He looked like someone had slapped him. His daughter Melissa stood next to him. Tears ran down her cheeks. She was clapping harder than anyone, but the person Sarah's eyes found was the elderly woman in pearls. She had been sitting at one of the front tables. Now she was standing. Her hands came together in steady, measured applause. Her eyes were locked on Sarah. In those eyes, Sarah saw something she had not seen in a long time. Recognition. Real recognition. Sarah stood up from the bench. Her legs felt weak. The applause continued. She did not know what to do. She had not expected this. She had expected to play and leave. Maybe there would be more laughter. Maybe more humiliation. She had not expected this. People started moving toward her. Questions came from every direction. Where did you learn to play like that? Do you perform regularly? What's your name? Who is your teacher? Are you available for private events? Sarah felt dizzy. It was too much. Too many people. Too many questions. Too much noise. She looked for the door but could not see it through the crowd. Her folder of sheet music still sat on top of the piano. She had almost forgotten why she came here in the first place. Someone touched her arm gently. Sarah turned. It was Melissa, Victor's daughter. Up close, Sarah could see that she was very young, maybe 25. Her eyes were red from crying. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard," Melissa said softly. "Thank you. Thank you for playing. I'm so sorry about my father. What he did was cruel." Sarah did not know what to say. She just nodded. Melissa squeezed her arm once, then stepped back. The crowd pushed forward again. More questions, more praise, more business cards being pressed into her hands. Through the mass of people, Sarah saw Victor. He had not moved. He just stood there watching. For the first time since Sarah had met him, he did not look confident. He looked uncomfortable. He looked small. The elderly woman in pearls was making her way through the crowd. People moved aside for her. She clearly was someone important. She walked with a cane but held her head high. When she reached Sarah, she looked at her carefully, studying her face. "What is your name, child?" the woman asked. Her voice was strong despite her age. "Sarah Mitchell," Sarah answered. Her own voice sounded strange to her ears. The woman's eyes widened. "Mitchell? Sarah Mitchell? Not the Sarah Mitchell who studied at Juilliard?" Sarah's breath caught. "Yes, that was me. A long time ago." The old woman's face broke into a smile. "My dear girl, I am Constance Hartford. I judged the competition where you won your scholarship. You were magnificent even then. But this, what you just played, was something else entirely. Where have you been? The music world thought you had vanished." Sarah felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She blinked them back. "I had family obligations. I had to step away." Constance nodded slowly, like she understood more than Sarah had said. "Well, you're not stepping away anymore. We need to talk, you and I. There are opportunities, if you're interested." Before Sarah could respond, someone else called out a question. The crowd pressed closer. Sarah looked at all the faces around her. They were smiling now. Interested. Respectful. These were the same people who had laughed at her minutes ago, who had watched Victor try to humiliate her and done nothing. Sarah glanced back at the piano. The Steinway sat quiet now, waiting for the next person to play it. She thought about her small apartment, her old car that did not work, her 15 piano students who could barely afford her cheap lessons. She thought about her brother in college, working part-time and studying hard. She thought about all the years she had pushed her dreams aside. Then she looked at Victor again. He was being pulled aside by his wife. The woman looked angry. She was speaking to him in a low, sharp voice. He just stood there and took it. The man who had tried to make Sarah feel worthless now looked like he wished he could disappear. Sarah did not feel triumph. She did not feel revenge. She felt tired and a little bit sad. Sad that it took humiliating her for people to see her talent. Sad that someone had to try to destroy her before others would defend her. Sad that this was how the world worked. But underneath the sadness, something else was growing. Something she had not felt in a very long time. It was small but getting stronger. It was hope. Maybe it was not too late. Maybe she could have her music back. Maybe she could be who she was supposed to be all along. Constance Hartford was still waiting for an answer. The crowd was still asking questions. Melissa was still crying quiet tears. Victor was still shrinking under his wife's anger. The piano was still sitting there, its keys remembering the touch of Sarah's fingers. Sarah took a deep breath. She looked at Constance and smiled. It was a real smile this time. "Yes," she said. "I'm interested. Let's talk." Sarah sat in the small coffee shop around the corner from the country club. Her hands were still shaking. She wrapped them around the warm cup of tea that Constance Hartford had ordered for her. The older woman sat across the table watching Sarah with patient eyes. Two of Constance's business cards sat on the table between them. Sarah had not touched them yet. The coffee shop was quiet. Only a few other people sat at the scattered tables. It was so different from the noise and chaos of the party. Sarah was grateful for the silence. Her head still felt full of the applause, the questions, the looks on people's faces. Most of all, she kept seeing Victor's expression when he realized she was not what he thought she was. "You don't have to decide anything today," Constance said gently. She stirred her own coffee slowly. "I know this has been overwhelming, but Sarah, you have a gift, a real gift. It would be a tragedy for the world to lose that." Sarah looked down at her tea. The surface was perfectly still. She could see her reflection in it. "I gave up music a long time ago," she said quietly. "I had to." There was no other choice, Constance nodded. "You mentioned family obligations. May I ask what happened? You don't have to tell me if it's too painful." Sarah had not talked about this in years. Not really talked about it. Her friends knew the basic facts, but she never went into detail. It hurt too much. But sitting here with Constance, who had seen her play when she was just a teenager with dreams, it felt right to explain. "My parents died 7 years ago," Sarah began. Her voice was steady, but her eyes stung. "Car accident. It was sudden. They were driving home from my brother's school play. A truck ran a red light. She stopped and took a breath. They died instantly. That's what the police told me. They said it was fast. Like that makes it better." Constance reached across the table and placed her hand over Sarah's. "I'm so sorry, child. My brother David was 15. I was 21. I was in my second year at Juilliard. I had a performance coming up. A big one. People were saying I could be one of the greats if I kept working." Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. None of that mattered anymore. David needed someone. He was just a kid. He was devastated. I was the only family he had left. "So you left school," Constance said. It was not a question. I left everything. I took David and moved back to our hometown. Got a job teaching piano lessons out of our parents' house. Made sure David finished high school. Made sure he ate, did his homework, had clean clothes. Made sure he knew someone loved him. Sarah finally looked up at Constance. I couldn't do both. I couldn't chase my dreams and take care of him. So I chose him. Constance squeezed Sarah's hand before pulling back. That was a brave choice. A loving choice. "But tell me, Sarah, where is David now?" "He's in college. Junior year. He's studying engineering. He's doing really well. He has a part-time job, friends, a girlfriend. He's happy." Sarah smiled a little. "He turned out okay, despite everything. Because of you," Constance said firmly. "He turned out okay because of you. But Sarah, he's grown now. He doesn't need you to sacrifice everything anymore. What do you need?" Sarah did not answer right away. What did she need? She had spent so many years thinking about what David needed, what her students needed, what everyone else needed. She had stopped asking herself that question. She was not even sure she knew the answer anymore. "I need to get back to the club," Sarah said instead. "I still have to find Mrs. Henderson. I never delivered the sheet music. That's why I went there in the first place." She started to stand up. "Sarah, wait." Constance's voice was gentle but firm. "Running away won't change what happened today. You played. People heard you. That can't be undone." Sarah sat back down. She felt tears forming again and wiped them away angrily. "I don't know if I can do this. It's been so long. What if I'm not good enough anymore? What if today was just luck?" That was not luck. That was years of training and natural talent combined with real emotion. Do you know what most pianists lack? They have the technique. They can play all the right notes. But they don't have heart. You have both. Constance leaned forward. "I've been in the classical music world for 40 years. I've heard thousands of pianists. What you played today was special, rare." Sarah thought about the piano at the club. She thought about how it felt to play again. Really play. Not simple songs for beginners. Not exercises and scales. Real music. Complex and beautiful and demanding. It had hurt, like using muscles that had been asleep for years. But it had also felt like coming home. What would it even look like? Sarah asked. If I said yes. If I tried to go back. I don't have money for a new start. I don't have connections anymore. Everyone I knew at Juilliard has moved on. They have careers now. I'm 7 years behind, Constance smiled. You let me worry about that. I have connections. I can arrange for you to play at some events. Small at first. Private gatherings, fundraisers, places where the right people will hear you. If you're as good as I think you are, and you are, word will spread. Opportunities will come. And what do you get out of this? Sarah had learned to be suspicious of offers that seemed too good. People usually wanted something. I get to help revive a career that should never have ended. I get to be part of your story. And yes, I get the satisfaction of being right about you. Constance's smile widened. I'm old, Sarah. I don't have time to be humble. I want to see you succeed because it will prove I still know talent when I see it. Sarah picked up one of the business cards. It was heavy paper, expensive. Constance Hartford, it read. Classical music patron and consultant. There was a phone number and an email address. Nothing else. Simple and elegant. Can I think about it? Sarah asked. Of course, but don't think too long. The music world has a short memory. Right now, people are talking about you. That woman who played at Victor Ashford's party. The one who made everyone cry. Use that momentum. Constance stood up and gathered her purse. Call me within the week. We'll talk more. After Constance left, Sarah sat alone with her cold tea. She pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from her brother. 2 text messages. She opened the messages. The first one said, "Hey, where are you? You were supposed to call after you dropped off that music." The second one said, "Sarah, answer your phone. I'm starting to worry." Sarah smiled and dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. Finally. "Where have you been?" David sounded annoyed but relieved. "You won't believe what happened," Sarah said. Then she told him everything. The mistaken identity, Victor's cruelty, the performance, the applause, Constance Hartford's offer. All of it came pouring out. David listened without interrupting. When she finished, there was silence on the line. Then David spoke. "You have to do this. David, it's complicated. I have students. I have bills. I can't just drop everything." "Yes, you can. Sarah, you gave up everything for me. Let me give something back. I have my job. I have my scholarship. I don't need your money anymore. I'm fine. More than fine. But you've been just surviving. Not living, just surviving. This is your chance to live again." Sarah felt the tears come back. "I'm scared. What if I fail? Then you fail. But at least you tried. Sarah, I was 15 when Mom and Dad died. I was a mess. I was angry and sad and lost. You put your whole life on hold to make sure I was okay. You were 21. You should have been chasing your dreams. Instead, you were making sure I ate breakfast and did my homework. You think I don't know what you gave up for me?" "You were worth it," Sarah said. Her voice cracked. "You were always worth it, I know. And that's exactly why you have to do this. Because I need to be worth it. I need to know that your sacrifice meant something. That it wasn't just you giving up everything for nothing. Go back to music. Be who you were supposed to be. Make it mean something." After they hung up, Sarah sat for a long time. The coffee shop was closing. The barista was wiping down tables and stacking chairs. Sarah finally stood up. She put Constance's cards carefully in her purse. Then she walked back to the country club. The party was over. The ballroom was empty except for cleaning staff. The tables were being cleared. The flowers were being packed up. The room that had been so full of people and noise was quiet now. Sarah walked to where the piano sat. It was still there on its small platform. She climbed the steps and sat at the bench. She did not play. She just sat there with her hands in her lap. A woman in a cleaning uniform looked over at her but said nothing. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to remember what it felt like when she was 19, and the whole world was open in front of her. Before the accident. Before the responsibility. Before she learned that life could take everything away in a single moment. But she also remembered what it felt like an hour ago. When her fingers moved across these same keys. When the music poured out of her like it had been waiting all these years. When she looked up and saw tears on strangers' faces. When even Victor, cruel Victor, had been shocked into silence. That feeling was still there. Still real. Still possible. Sarah opened her eyes. She placed her hands on the keys but did not press down. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered to the empty room. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." The piano did not answer. Of course it didn't. But sitting there, Sarah felt something shift inside her. It was small, like a door opening just a crack. Light coming through. She had spent 7 years being strong for David, being responsible, being the adult, being everything except herself. Maybe David was right. Maybe it was time to be strong for herself now. She stood up and looked at the piano one more time. Then she walked out of the ballroom. In the lobby, she finally found the reception desk. The young man in the white shirt looked up at her. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Yes, I'm looking for Mrs. Henderson. She's a member here. I was supposed to deliver some sheet music to her." The young man typed on his computer. "Mrs. Henderson already left for the day, but I can make sure she gets your message. What's your name?" "Sarah Mitchell. I teach piano lessons to her granddaughter." The young man wrote down her information. As Sarah turned to leave, he called out, Wait, are you the woman who played at the Ashford party? Everyone is talking about it. They said it was amazing, Sarah paused. Yes, that was me. Wow, that's so cool. My girlfriend plays piano. She's not very good, though. He laughed. Could you maybe teach her? Sarah smiled. A real smile. Have her call me. I'm always looking for new students. As she left the country club, Sarah pulled out her phone. She looked at Constance's business card again. Then she typed a message. This is Sarah Mitchell. Can we meet again tomorrow? I want to talk more about your offer. She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she started the long walk to the bus stop. Her feet hurt in her old shoes. Her dress was wrinkled from sitting so long. She probably looked as tired as she felt. But inside, something was different. Something had changed. She was not sure what would happen next. She was not sure if she could really do this. But for the first time in 7 years, she wanted to try. The bus ride home took almost an hour. Sarah looked out the window at the city passing by. Shops and restaurants, people walking on sidewalks, cars stuck in traffic. Normal life. Normal people doing normal things. She thought about Victor and his mean smile. She thought about Melissa's tears. She thought about Constance's steady, believing eyes. She thought about David telling her to go chase her dreams. She thought about the Steinway piano and how it felt under her fingers. When she got to her apartment building, she climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her door. The hallway smelled like someone was cooking curry. She could hear a baby crying somewhere. Her door key stuck in the lock like always. She had to jiggle it twice before it opened. Inside, her apartment was small and dark. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room that barely fit her couch and her old upright piano. Sarah walked to the piano. It was not a Steinway. It was not beautiful or expensive or perfectly tuned. Some of the keys stuck. The bench wobbled. But it was hers. She had bought it used when she first started teaching. She sat down and played a scale, then another. Then she played the same Chopin piece from the party. It sounded different on this piano. Flatter, less rich, but the emotion was still there. The music was still there. Her phone buzzed. A message from Constance, tomorrow at 2. Coffee shop on 5th Street. Bring your courage. Sarah smiled and typed back, I'll be there. She played piano until late into the night. Her neighbors probably heard. They usually complained when she played after 9. But tonight she did not stop. She played Chopin and Rachmaninoff and Beethoven. She played pieces she had learned as a child and pieces she had mastered as a teenager. Her fingers remembered everything. Every note. Every chord. Every emotion. When she finally stopped, it was past midnight. Her hands ached. Her back was stiff, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She stood up and looked at herself in the small mirror by her door. She looked tired, but there was something else there too. Something in her eyes. It was determination. It was hope. It was the beginning of believing that maybe, just maybe, she could have her music back. Sarah got ready for bed. As she lay in the dark, she thought about tomorrow's meeting with Constance. She thought about what it would mean to really try again, to put herself out there, to risk failing, to risk people saying she was not good enough, to risk everything. It was terrifying, but it was also exciting. For the first time in 7 years, she had something to look forward to, something that was just for her. She fell asleep thinking about piano keys and concert halls and audiences who came to listen. She fell asleep thinking about a future that might be possible. She fell asleep with a smile on her face. Tomorrow, everything would start to change. Tomorrow, she would begin the long journey back to the person she used to be. Tomorrow, she would stop just surviving and start living again. But tonight, she was just Sarah. Tired, scared, hopeful Sarah. And that was enough. 3 weeks had passed since the party at the country club. Sarah stood backstage at the Riverside Concert Hall, wiping her sweaty palms on her dress. This dress was new. Constance had insisted on buying it for her. It was simple but elegant, dark blue with long sleeves. Sarah barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked like a real pianist, like someone who belonged on a stage. 5 minutes, Miss Mitchell, a young man with a headset said as he passed by. Sarah nodded but could not speak. Her throat felt tight. Her heart was beating so hard she thought everyone could probably hear it. This was her first real performance in 7 years. Constance had arranged it. a fundraiser for a children's music education charity. The audience would be small, maybe 100 people, but they were the right people. Music critics, wealthy donors, other musicians, people who mattered in the classical music world, people who could help or hurt a career with a single review. Sarah peeked through the curtain at the audience. The seats were filling up. She saw Constance in the third row talking to an older man in a suit. She saw some faces she recognized from the country club party. She did not see Victor, and she was grateful for that. But then, in the back row, she spotted someone that made her smile. David. Her brother had driven 3 hours from college to be here. He saw her peeking and gave her a thumbs up. Sarah's eyes stung with tears, but she blinked them back. You're going to be wonderful. A voice beside her made Sarah jump. She turned to see a woman around her age. She had kind eyes and was holding a violin case. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. I'm Rebecca Chen. I'm playing after you. First time back? Is it that obvious? Sarah asked. Rebecca laughed softly. I can see it in your eyes. I took 5 years off after my daughter was born. Coming back was the scariest thing I've ever done. But you know what? It was also the best thing. Trust your training, trust your talent, trust that you belong here. Thank you, Sarah said. She meant it. 2 minutes, Miss Mitchell, the man with the headset called out. Rebecca squeezed Sarah's shoulder. Break a leg. Sarah took a deep breath, then another. She thought about all the practice she had done over the past 3 weeks. Hours and hours at her old piano. More hours at the practice room Constance had arranged for her. Her fingers knew the music. Her body knew what to do. She just had to trust it. The lights in the audience dimmed. The crowd grew quiet. This was it. Sarah walked onto the stage. The spotlight was bright and warm. The piano waited for her, a beautiful black Steinway. She sat down on the bench and adjusted it slightly. Then she looked out at the audience. She could barely see them past the lights, but she knew they were there. Watching. Waiting. Judging. Sarah placed her hands on the keys. The audience held its breath. Then she began to play. She had chosen Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor. It was a challenging piece, dark and dramatic. Her professor at Juilliard had once told her that this piece could make or break a pianist's reputation. If you played it well, people remembered. If you played it badly, people also remembered. There was no middle ground. Sarah's fingers moved across the keys with confidence she did not feel. The first chords rang out heavy and ominous, like a storm building. She let herself fall into the music. She forgot about the audience. She forgot about being nervous. She forgot about everything except the notes and the emotion behind them. The prelude was about struggle, about fighting against something overwhelming, about finding strength when you thought you had none left. Sarah understood that. She had lived that. The music grew louder, more intense. Sarah's whole body moved with it. Her shoulders, her back, her arms, everything working together to pull the sound from the instrument. The middle section came, slightly softer but still full of tension. Then the return of the main theme, even more powerful than before. The piano sang and roared under her hands. She could feel sweat on her forehead, could feel her heart racing, could feel every emotion she had buried for 7 years pouring out through her fingertips. The final chord crashed through the hall like thunder. Then silence. Complete, total silence. Sarah's hands stayed on the keys. She was breathing hard. She did not want to look up, did not want to see disappointment in people's faces, did not want to know if she had failed. Then the applause started. Not slow like at the country club. This time it exploded all at once, loud and immediate and overwhelming. Sarah finally looked up. People were standing, all of them, even the critics in the front row, even the other musicians. Everyone was on their feet clapping. Some were whistling. Sarah saw David in the back clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. She saw Constance with tears running down her face. Sarah stood and took a bow. The applause continued. She bowed again. Someone threw flowers onto the stage. Red roses. They landed near the piano. Sarah picked them up, clutching them to her chest. The applause went on and on. It felt like forever. It felt like a dream. When she finally walked off stage, her legs were shaking. Rebecca was waiting in the wings, smiling. "See? I told you." That was incredible. People crowded around Sarah immediately. Hands to shake. Congratulations to accept. Business cards pressed into her palm. A newspaper critic wanted to interview her. A concert organizer wanted to book her for a summer series. A recording studio representative asked if she had an agent. It was overwhelming. Sarah tried to respond to everyone, but her mind was still half in the music, still feeling the keys under her fingers, still hearing the notes echoing in her head. "Give her some space, please." Constance's voice cut through the crowd. The older woman pushed her way to Sarah and took her arm. "She'll be available for questions in the lobby after the performance. Right now she needs a moment." Constance guided Sarah to a quiet corner backstage. "I did it," Sarah said. She was laughing and crying at the same time. "I actually did it. You did more than that. You were magnificent." "Sarah, do you understand? What just happened? Those critics who were clapping, they can make careers. The woman from Symphony Hall? She books their main season. The man who threw the roses? He's a major donor to the arts. You impressed all of them." Sarah leaned against the wall. Her adrenaline was fading, leaving her exhausted. "I thought I was going to throw up before I went on stage," Constance laughed. "Most performers feel that way. It means you care. Now come on, let's go find your brother. Then we'll talk to some of these people who want to work with you." David was waiting in the lobby. When he saw Sarah, he ran to her and picked her up in a hug, lifting her off her feet. "You were amazing. I recorded the whole thing. Well, most of it. My phone died at the end, but Sarah, that was incredible. I knew you were good, but I didn't know you were that good." "Put me down, you're making a scene," Sarah said, but she was laughing. When David set her down, she looked at him carefully. He was so tall now, so grown up. When had that happened? When did her little brother become this confident young man? "Thank you for coming. It means everything that you're here." "Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this for anything. This is your night. Finally." David's eyes were wet. Mom and Dad would be so proud. Sarah hugged him again. She let herself cry a little on his shoulder. Then she wiped her eyes and straightened her dress. "Okay. Constance says I need to talk to people. Network. That's what professionals do, right?" "That's what professionals do," David agreed. "Go be professional. I'll wait here and try not to embarrass you." The next hour was a blur. Sarah talked to critics who asked about her technique and interpretation. She talked to donors who wanted to support young artists. She talked to other musicians who welcomed her back to the performance world. Everyone wanted to know her story, where she had been, why she stopped playing, how she started again. Sarah told them a simplified version: family circumstances, had to take a break, found her way back to music. Most people seemed satisfied with that answer. The woman from Symphony Hall, whose name was Margaret Larson, pulled Sarah aside. "I want you to play at our Rising Stars series in the fall. It's a program that features emerging and returning talent. The audience is always full and it gets good press coverage. Are you interested?" Sarah's heart jumped. Symphony Hall was one of the most prestigious venues in the region. "Yes, absolutely. I would be honored." "Wonderful. I'll have my assistant contact you with the details." Margaret handed Sarah her card. "That performance tonight was special. You have real depth. That's rare. Technique can be taught, but what you have comes from somewhere deeper. Don't lose that." After Margaret walked away, Sarah looked down at the business card in her hand. It felt heavier than it should. This was real. This was actually happening. She was being invited to play at Symphony Hall. 6 months ago, she was teaching Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to 6-year-olds in her cramped apartment. Now this, Sarah Mitchell? A man's voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a thin man with glasses and a notepad. "I'm James Wu from the Classical Music Review. Could I ask you a few questions?" Sarah had read the Classical Music Review online. It was one of the most influential publications in the industry. A good review from them could change everything. A bad review could end a career before it started. Sarah swallowed her nervousness. "Of course." James asked smart questions. Not just about tonight's performance, but about her interpretation of Rachmaninoff, about her training, about her influences. Sarah answered as best she could. She tried to sound intelligent and thoughtful without being pretentious. It was a careful balance. When James asked about her years away from performing, Sarah told him the truth about her parents and her brother. She saw his expression soften. "That's quite a sacrifice," James said. "How does it feel to be back?" Sarah thought about the question. Really thought about it. "It feels like I can breathe again. I didn't realize how much I was suffocating until I started playing again. Music isn't just something I do. It's part of who I am. Being without it was like being without air. I survived, but I wasn't really living." James wrote that down word for word. "That's a great quote. Thank you for your time, Sarah. I think you're going to see a lot of success. You have something real, something honest. Don't let anyone take that away from you." After James left, Sarah found a chair and sat down. Her feet hurt. Her head was spinning. She felt exhausted and exhilarated at the same time. Constance sat down beside her. "How are you holding up?" the older woman asked. "I don't know. This doesn't feel real." "Did that actually just happen?" "It happened, and it's only the beginning." "Sarah, I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen a lot of talented people. But you have something special. You have the ability to make people feel what you're feeling. That's a gift. Not everyone has it. What if this is it, though? What if I used up all my luck tonight? What if next time I'm terrible?" Constance smiled. "Then you'll practice and get better. Sarah, being a professional musician isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent, about showing up and doing the work even when you don't feel inspired. Can you do that?" Sarah thought about the last 7 years. Waking up early to teach lessons before students went to school. Working late nights so she could pay bills. Never giving up even when she was tired and broke and lonely. "Yes," she said firmly. "I can do that. I've been doing that my whole life." "Good, then you'll be fine." Constance stood up. "Come on, let's get you home. You need rest. Tomorrow we'll start planning your next performance." David drove Sarah back to her apartment. They did not talk much during the drive. Sarah stared out the window at the city lights. Everything looked different somehow, brighter, more alive. Or maybe she was just seeing it differently now. "You know what the best part was?" David said as he pulled up to her building. "Watching you smile. You haven't smiled like that in years, Sarah. Tonight, when you were playing, you looked happy. Really, truly happy." Sarah turned to look at her brother. "I was happy. I am happy. Scared but happy. Thank you, David, for telling me to do this. For supporting me. For being okay. I'm more than okay. I'm great. And now you get to be great too." David reached over and squeezed her hand. "This is your time. Take it." After David left, Sarah climbed the stairs to her apartment. She was so tired she could barely move. But when she opened her door and saw her old piano sitting in the living room, she smiled. She walked over to it and sat down on the wobbly bench. She did not play anything complicated. Just a simple melody. Something soft and sweet. A lullaby her mother used to play. The notes floated through her small apartment. Tomorrow she would call her students and reschedule some lessons so she could practice more. Tomorrow she would email Margaret about the Symphony Hall performance. Tomorrow she would start planning her repertoire and working on new pieces. Tomorrow she would be a professional musician, but tonight she was just Sarah. Sarah who had taken a huge risk. Sarah who had faced her fears and played her heart out. Sarah who had remembered what it felt like to be alive. And that was enough. She played the lullaby 3 times. Then she got ready for bed. As she lay in the dark, she thought about her parents. She wondered if they could see her somehow. If they knew she was playing again. If they were proud. She liked to think they were. She liked to think they understood why she had to stop and why she had to start again. Sleep came slowly. Sarah's mind was too full of music and memories and possibilities. But when she finally drifted off, she dreamed of concert halls and standing ovations. She dreamed of her fingers flying across piano keys, She dreamed of the person she used to be and the person she was becoming, and in her dreams, her mother and father sat in the front row smiling. 6 months after her first performance at the Riverside Concert Hall, Sarah sat in a rehearsal room at Symphony Hall. Her performance for the Rising Stars series was in 3 days. She had practiced this program 100 times, maybe more. But sitting here in this huge empty hall looking at the stage where she would play, Sarah felt her old fears creeping back. The door opened behind her. Sarah turned to see someone she had not expected. Melissa Ashford, Victor's daughter, stood in the doorway. She looked uncertain, like she was not sure if she should be there. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, very different from the fancy dress she had worn at her engagement party. "Hi," Melissa said quietly. "I hope it's okay that I'm here. I asked Constance Hartford where I could find you. I wanted to talk to you before your performance." Sarah stood up. "Of course it's okay. Come in, how are you? How was the wedding?" Melissa walked into the rehearsal room and sat down in one of the chairs. "There was no wedding. I called it off 2 weeks after the engagement party." "The party where you played?" "Oh." Sarah was not sure what to say. "I'm sorry, don't be. It was the right choice. My fiancé, Jason, he was nice enough. But watching you that day, seeing how you played with so much feeling, so much passion, it made me realize I was settling. I was marrying someone because it was expected. Because it looked good on paper. But there was no real connection, no depth. I wanted what you had when you played that piano. I wanted to feel something real." Sarah sat down next to Melissa. "That must have been hard. Breaking off an engagement. What did your parents say?" Melissa laughed, but it was bitter. "My mother was upset about the deposits we lost. The venue, the catering, all of that. But my father? He surprised me. He said I should do what makes me happy. That life's too short to pretend." She paused. "He's changed a lot since that day. Since what he did to you." Sarah had not thought about Victor in months. She had been too busy practicing, performing, rebuilding her career. "How is your father?" "Different. Quieter. He started volunteering at a community music center in the city. He teaches business skills to young musicians, helps them learn about contracts and money management. He doesn't talk about it much, but I think what happened with you really affected him. He saw himself that day, really saw himself. And he didn't like what he saw." "That's good," Sarah said. She meant it. She did not hate Victor. She never had. She had been angry and hurt, but not hateful. "People can change if they want to. He wanted me to give you this." Melissa pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it to Sarah. "He was too embarrassed to come himself, but he wanted you to have it before your performance." Sarah opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000 made out to her name. There was also a handwritten note on expensive paper. Sarah read it out loud. "Dear Miss Mitchell, I cannot adequately apologize for my behavior at my daughter's engagement party. I was cruel and thoughtless. I treated you as less than human, and for that I am deeply sorry. Your grace and talent that day taught me a lesson I desperately needed to learn. Please accept this donation to support your musical career. Consider it an investment in ensuring that beautiful music continues to exist in the world. You have a rare gift. Don't let small-minded people like I was that day stop you from sharing it. With sincere regret and respect, Victor Ashford." Sarah stared at the check. $50,000. That was more money than she had made in the last 2 years combined. She could pay off her debts, fix her car, maybe even move to a better apartment. She looked at Melissa. "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. My father can afford it. Honestly, it's probably the least selfish thing he's done in years. Please take it. It will make him feel better, and you deserve it after what he put you through." Sarah folded the check and put it back in the envelope. She would think about it later. Right now, she had other things on her mind. "Thank you for bringing this, and thank you for what you said that day, at the party, when you stood up to your father. That meant a lot. I should have said something sooner. I should have stopped him the moment he started being cruel. But I was too worried about making a scene at my own party. I'm sorry for that." Melissa stood up. "I should let you practice. I just wanted to see you before the performance, to wish you luck, and to say thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For reminding me that there's more to life than doing what's expected. I'm applying to grad school now. Film studies. I want to be a documentary filmmaker. My parents think it's crazy, but I don't care anymore. Watching you fight back with your music, with your talent, it inspired me. If you could reclaim your dreams after 7 years, I could at least try to find mine. After Melissa left, Sarah sat alone in the rehearsal room for a long time. She looked at the envelope in her hand. Then she looked at the stage. 3 days from now, she would walk out onto that stage in front of hundreds of people. Critics would be there, important people. People who could help her career or hurt it. The pressure was enormous. But sitting here, Sarah realized something. She was not doing this for them. She was doing it for herself. For the girl who fell in love with piano when she was 8 years old. For the young woman who dreamed of concert halls and audiences. For all the years she had put those dreams aside. This was for her. Sarah stood up and walked to the piano on stage. She sat down and began to play. Not the pieces she would perform in 3 days. Just random melodies. Notes that felt right. Music that came from somewhere deep inside her. The acoustics in Symphony Hall were perfect. Every note rang out clear and pure. The sound filled the empty space, bouncing off the walls and ceiling. It was the most beautiful sound Sarah had ever heard. She did not know how long she played. Time disappeared when she was at the piano. It always had. She only stopped when she heard clapping. Sarah looked up, startled. A janitor stood at the back of the hall. He was an older man with gray hair. He walked down the aisle toward the stage, still clapping. "Sorry, miss. Didn't mean to interrupt." But that was beautiful. "I've worked here 20 years. Heard a lot of musicians. You're something special." He smiled at her. "You nervous about the performance?" "Terrified," Sarah admitted. "Don't be. You got the gift. I can hear it. Just do what you were doing just now. Play from here." He patted his chest over his heart. "Not from here." He pointed to his head. "Too many of these young musicians, they play perfectly. Every note, right? But there's no soul. You got soul. That's what people want to hear." "Thank you," Sarah said. She meant it. Sometimes wisdom came from unexpected places. From janitors in empty concert halls. From people who really listened. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Sarah practiced until her fingers hurt. She barely slept. She drank too much coffee and forgot to eat regular meals. Constance scolded her and forced her to take breaks. David called every night to check on her. Her students sent encouraging messages. Even some of her old classmates from Juilliard reached out. News of her comeback had spread through the classical music community. People were curious. Some were supportive. Others were skeptical. A few were probably hoping she would fail. That was how the world worked. The night of the performance arrived. Sarah stood backstage in a new dress. This one was deep red, elegant, and striking. Constance had insisted on red. "It's a power color," she had said. "You need to own that stage. Red will help." Sarah could hear the audience taking their seats. The hall was full. Every seat sold out. That made her more nervous. Margaret Larson, the woman who had invited her, stopped by to wish her luck. "The house is packed." "That's good. Means people want to hear you. Don't let the crowd intimidate you. They're on your side." Rebecca Chen, the violinist Sarah had met at her first performance, was also on the program tonight. She found Sarah backstage and gave her a hug. "Remember what I told you last time? Trust yourself. You've got this." Sarah peeked out at the audience. She saw Constance in her usual third-row seat. David sat next to her, and then Sarah saw someone that made her catch her breath. Victor Ashford sat in the middle section, dressed in a dark suit. Next to him was his wife Patricia and daughter Melissa. He saw Sarah looking and gave her a small nod. Not arrogant like before, just respectful, acknowledging her. Sarah nodded back. 5 minutes, Miss Mitchell," the stage manager called out. This was it. Sarah did some breathing exercises her old professor had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Calm the heart rate. Focus the mind. She thought about her parents. About her brother. About all the hours she had practiced. About the 7 years she had spent teaching instead of performing. About finding her way back to this moment. She was ready. The lights dimmed. The audience grew quiet. Sarah walked onto the stage. The applause was warm and welcoming. She bowed and sat at the piano. The Steinway was perfect, as she knew it would be. She adjusted the bench, placed her hands on the keys, took one more breath. Then she began to play. Her program started with Bach, the Goldberg Variations. It was a technically difficult piece, but Sarah had chosen it because it was also deeply emotional. Each variation was different. Some were joyful, others melancholic. Some were fast and energetic, others slow and contemplative. Together they told a story. Sarah's story of loss and survival, of despair and hope, of losing yourself and finding your way back. As she played, Sarah forgot about the audience. She forgot about the critics. She forgot about everything except the music. Her fingers flew across the keys with confidence and precision. But more than that, they played with feeling, with soul. Like the janitor had said, she was not just playing notes. She was sharing a piece of herself. Being vulnerable in front of hundreds of strangers. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. The Bach ended. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Sarah took a breath and moved to the next piece. Chopin. The same nocturne she had played at Victor's party, but this time she played it differently. With more maturity, more understanding. 6 months ago she was playing from a place of pain and anger. Tonight she played from a place of peace, of acceptance, of moving forward while honoring the past. After the Chopin came Rachmaninoff, then Debussy, then finally Gershwin. Rhapsody in Blue, a bold choice to end with. It was jazz-influenced classical music, playful and serious at the same time. Complex but accessible, Sarah played it with joy, with energy, with the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing you belong exactly where you are. The final notes of the Gershwin rang out. Sarah lifted her hands from the keys. The silence lasted only a second. Then the audience erupted. They were on their feet before she could even stand up. The applause was deafening. People were shouting, "Bravo!" Flowers landed on the stage. Red roses again. Sarah stood and bowed. The applause continued. She bowed again and again. The stage manager had to signal her to take a fourth bow. The audience would not stop clapping. Sarah looked out at the crowd. She saw tears on some faces, huge smiles on others. People clapping so hard their hands must have hurt. She saw Constance wiping her eyes. David was whistling and cheering. And Victor, reserved Victor, was clapping slowly and steadily. His expression was not of a man trying to make himself feel better about his past behavior. It was the expression of someone who genuinely appreciated what he had just witnessed. The applause finally faded as Sarah walked off stage. But the audience called her back. She returned for a final bow. Then she was finally allowed to leave the stage. Backstage, she collapsed into a chair. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. Adrenaline flooded through her body. She had done it. She had really done it. People crowded around her immediately. Congratulations from every direction. Margaret Larson was beaming. That was extraordinary. We need to talk about making you a regular performer here. Are you available for our winter season? The critic from the Classical Music Review, James Wu, approached with his notepad. I need to interview you. That performance needs to be documented. Can we talk tomorrow? Rebecca Chen hugged her. You were incredible. Want to collaborate on something? I think we'd work well together. Sarah tried to respond to everyone, but she was overwhelmed. Then Constance appeared like a guardian angel, clearing a path through the crowd. Give her space. She'll be available for interviews later. Right now she needs a moment. Constance led Sarah to a quiet dressing room and closed the door. How do you feel? Sarah started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. I don't know. I feel everything. Was I okay? Was it good? It was more than good. Sarah, you were brilliant. That performance was everything I knew you could be. The reviews tomorrow will be glowing. Your career is officially reborn. Sarah looked at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was smudged from crying. Her carefully styled hair was a little messy, but her eyes were bright, alive. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. You did. And this is only the beginning. Constance handed Sarah a tissue. Clean up your face. Your brother is waiting to celebrate with you, and I think Victor Ashford would like to speak with you if you're willing. Sarah wiped her eyes and fixed her makeup as best she could. Then she went back out to face the crowd. David swept her up in a huge hug. You were amazing. I recorded the whole thing this time. Battery fully charged. I'm going to watch it 1,000,000 times. After talking to well-wishers for almost an hour, Sarah finally saw Victor standing off to the side. He was waiting patiently, not pushing forward like the others. When Sarah walked over to him, he looked genuinely humble. Miss Mitchell, I won't take much of your time. I just wanted to say that was extraordinary, and to apologize again, face to face, for how I treated you. I was a fool. I judged you based on your appearance and my own arrogance. I'm sorry. Sarah looked at this man who had tried to humiliate her 6 months ago. He looked different now. Softer somehow. More human. Thank you for coming tonight. And thank you for the donation. I'm going to use it to create a scholarship fund. For students who can't afford lessons. Kids like I was, Victor smiled. It was nothing like the mean smile from the party. This one was genuine. That's a wonderful idea. I'd like to contribute more if you'll allow it. And if you ever need business advice for managing your career, I'm at your service. For free, it's the least I can do. I might take you up on that, Sarah said. Then she did something she did not expect to do. She extended her hand. Victor shook it, his grip warm and respectful. It was not forgiveness exactly, but it was closure. It was moving forward, and that was enough. The celebration went late into the night. Sarah finally got home past midnight. She was exhausted but could not sleep. She sat at her old piano and played quietly. Just simple melodies, the kind her mother used to play. Tomorrow the reviews would come out. Tomorrow her phone would ring with new opportunities. Tomorrow her life as a professional musician would truly begin. But tonight she just played. For herself. For the joy of it. For the love of music that had never really left her. She played until the sun started to come up. And then finally she slept. 1 year after her Symphony Hall performance, Sarah stood in the lobby of Carnegie Hall in New York City. Carnegie Hall, the most famous concert venue in America, maybe in the world. Every classical musician dreamed of playing here. Sarah had dreamed of it since she was a child. Tonight that dream would become real. The past year had been a whirlwind. After Symphony Hall, the offers had poured in. Performances across the country, a recording contract with a major classical label, interviews with music magazines. Sarah had gone from teaching piano in a cramped apartment to being called one of classical music's most exciting comeback stories. It still did not feel completely real, but tonight was different. Tonight was Carnegie Hall. This was not just another performance. This was the performance that would define her place in the music world. The hall was completely sold out. Every one of the 2,800 seats was filled. Sarah had checked ticket sales obsessively for weeks, watching the numbers climb, seeing her name on the Carnegie Hall website, reading comments from people excited to hear her play. It was overwhelming and wonderful and absolutely terrifying. Sarah looked at herself in the full-length mirror in her dressing room. Her dress was midnight blue, simple but elegant. Her hair was pulled back in a classic style. She wore small diamond earrings that had belonged to her mother. David had given them to her last week. Mom would want you to wear them tonight, he had said. She'd be so proud. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, Sarah called. Constance Hartford entered, followed by David. Constance looked elegant as always in a silver dress. David wore a suit that actually fit him properly. Not a borrowed one or a cheap rental. He had graduated from college 3 months ago and landed a good job as an engineer. He was doing well. Really well. And tonight he had flown to New York just to watch his sister play. How are you feeling? Constance asked, studying Sarah's face carefully. Like I might throw up, Sarah admitted. Is that normal? For Carnegie Hall? Absolutely, Constance smiled. I've talked to dozens of performers over the years. Everyone is nervous before Carnegie. Even the famous ones. Even the ones who have played here 20 times. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried. David walked over and hugged his sister. You're going to be amazing. You always are. Remember when I had to give that big presentation for my senior project? You told me to imagine everyone in the audience was rooting for me, that they wanted me to succeed. Do that tonight. Those people paid good money to hear you play. They're on your side. Sarah hugged him back. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, David said. He pulled back and looked at her seriously. Sarah, you've already succeeded. You've already proven everything you needed to prove. Tonight is just celebration. Just enjoy it. Play for the love of it. Play because you love music, not because you have to prove anything to anyone. 30 minutes, Miss Mitchell, a voice called from the hallway. Sarah took a deep breath. Okay, I can do this. Of course you can, Constance said. You've been doing it for a year. This is just a bigger stage. The music is the same. Your talent is the same. Trust yourself. After they left, Sarah sat quietly in her dressing room. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The car accident that killed her parents. The 7 years of teaching. The country club party where Victor tried to humiliate her. That first performance at Riverside Concert Hall, Symphony Hall, all the performances in between, every note she had practiced, every tear she had cried, every moment of doubt, every moment of joy. It all led here, to this room, to this night. To Carnegie Hall, her phone buzzed. A text message from Victor Ashford. Break a leg tonight. You've earned this moment. The scholarship fund has helped 12 students so far. Your parents would be proud. VA. Sarah smiled. Over the past year, Victor had become an unlikely ally. True to his word, he had helped her navigate the business side of her career. Contracts, taxes, investments, all the boring but necessary parts of being a professional musician. He never asked for recognition, never tried to take credit. He just helped, quietly, consistently, his way of making amends. The scholarship fund Sarah had created with his donation had grown. Other donors had contributed. They had helped a dozen kids get music lessons who could not otherwise afford them. It felt good, like her success was helping others, like it meant something beyond herself. Another text came through, this one from Rebecca Chen, the violinist, listening to the live stream from home. Can't wait to hear you play. You've got this. The live stream. Sarah had almost forgotten. Carnegie Hall was streaming the concert online. Thousands of people around the world would be watching. That should have made her more nervous, but somehow it didn't. Let them watch. Let them hear. She had nothing to hide, nothing to prove. She was good at what she did. She had worked hard for this. She deserved to be here. 15 minutes, Miss Mitchell. Sarah stood and did some stretches. Her old professor at Juilliard had taught her these. Loosen the shoulders. Shake out the hands. Roll the neck. Get the body ready to perform. Then she did her breathing exercises. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Calm the heartbeat. Clear the mind. Focus on the music. Only the music. She looked at herself one more time in the mirror. You can do this, she told her reflection. You were born to do this. Then she walked out of the dressing room and made her way backstage. The stage manager was waiting. Ready, Miss Mitchell? Ready, Sarah said. And she meant it. She could hear the audience on the other side of the curtain. The low murmur of thousands of conversations. Programs rustling. People finding their seats. Coughs and laughter and excitement. Sarah peeked through a gap in the curtain. The hall was magnificent. 3 levels of seating, all full. The stage was huge. The piano sat in the center waiting. A beautiful Steinway, of course. The best instrument for the best hall. Sarah spotted Constance and David in the orchestra section, close to the front. She saw several familiar faces. Critics she had met over the past year. Musicians she had performed with. Margaret Larson from Symphony Hall. Even Melissa Ashford was there, sitting with her new boyfriend. A documentary filmmaker she had met at a film festival. Melissa had sent Sarah a long email last month, thanking her again for the inspiration to change her life. She was happy now, really happy, following her dreams. But Sarah also saw thousands of strangers, people she did not know, people who had come from all over to hear her play. Some had probably heard her recordings. Others had read the reviews. Some were just curious about the comeback story. The piano teacher who played at a Millionaire's party and changed her life. That's what the media called her. It was a nice story, but it was also incomplete. It left out the pain and sacrifice, the hard work and doubt, the late nights and early mornings, the years of struggle. But that was okay. People could have their story. Sarah knew the truth. That was enough. The lights dimmed. The audience grew quiet. The stage manager looked at Sarah. This is it. Good luck. Sarah walked onto the stage. The applause was immediate and thunderous. 2,800 people clapping for her, for Sarah Mitchell, the girl from a small town who lost her parents and almost lost her dreams. She made it to the piano and bowed. The applause continued. She bowed again. Then she sat down at the bench and adjusted it carefully. The audience fell silent, waiting, anticipating. Sarah placed her hands on the keys. She closed her eyes for just a moment. She thought about her mother playing lullabies when Sarah was small. She thought about her father sitting in the front row at her first recital. She thought about David as a lost 15-year-old who needed someone to take care of him. She thought about Constance seeing her talent and believing in her. She thought about Victor learning humility. She thought about every student she had taught and every person she had inspired. She thought about the janitor at Symphony Hall telling her to play from the heart. She thought about all the people who had helped her get here, all the people who had believed in her when she stopped believing in herself. Then she opened her eyes and began to play. Her program tonight was ambitious. It started with Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the famous first movement, gentle and haunting. Then the explosive third movement, fast and passionate. It was a contrast. Calm and storm, peace and fury, control and chaos. Sarah played it perfectly. Not just technically perfect, emotionally perfect. She made the piano whisper and sing and roar. She made it tell a story. The audience was mesmerized. After Beethoven came Chopin, the same nocturne she had played at Victor's party. The piece that started everything. But tonight it sounded different. More mature, more nuanced. When Sarah played it at the party, she was playing from a place of survival. Tonight she played from a place of triumph. The difference was subtle but profound. The audience felt it. She could tell by the absolute silence in the hall. No coughing, no rustling. Just 2,800 people holding their breath. Then came Rachmaninoff. The prelude in C-sharp minor that she had played at her first comeback performance. This piece was darker, more dramatic. Sarah attacked the keys with controlled fury. She poured everything into it. Every frustration, every disappointment, every moment of doubt, but also every moment of hope, every small victory, every step forward. The final note rang out clear and strong. Sarah lifted her hands from the keys and sat very still. The silence lasted longer this time. 5 seconds, 10. She wondered if the audience hated it, if including her own composition had been a mistake, if she had ruined the entire performance with her arrogance. Then the applause started. Not explosive this time, slower, but growing, building like a wave. People were standing. Not just some of them. All of them. Every single person in Carnegie Hall was on their feet, clapping, some were crying. Sarah saw tears on faces throughout the audience. She saw Constance and David in the front, both crying and clapping. She saw critics nodding with approval. She saw strangers moved to tears by her music, by her story, by her resilience. The applause went on for 5 minutes, maybe longer. Sarah lost track. She bowed again and again. Flowers were thrown onto the stage. Red roses, white lilies, pink peonies. The stage manager had to help her collect them all. When she finally walked off stage, her arms were full of flowers and her face was wet with tears. But the audience would not stop clapping. They called her back once, twice, 3 times. Each time the applause renewed. Finally, the stage manager asked if she wanted to do an encore. Sarah nodded. She went back out and sat at the piano one more time. She did not play anything from the program. Instead, she played the simple lullaby her mother used to play. The one she had played the night of her first comeback performance. It was gentle and sweet and full of love. The audience listened in reverent silence. When the last note faded, there was a long pause. Then the applause came again, softer this time but no less meaningful. When Sarah finally made it back to her dressing room, she collapsed onto the couch. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. She felt exhausted and exhilarated and grateful and overwhelmed all at once. There was a knock on the door. Before she could answer, it opened. David and Constance came in, followed by a crowd of well-wishers. Margaret Larson, Rebecca Chen, James Wu from the Classical Music Review, even some musicians she recognized but had never met. They all wanted to congratulate her, to tell her how moved they were, to talk about her original composition. Everyone was buzzing about resilience. Several people asked if she planned to write more, if she would record it, if other pianists could perform it. I don't know, Sarah said honestly. I just wanted to play my truth tonight. I didn't think about what would come after. Well, you should think about it, James Wu said. That composition was remarkable, fresh, honest. The classical music world needs more pieces like that. Music that speaks to modern struggles, contemporary experiences. Don't hide that talent. After almost an hour, the crowd finally dispersed. Sarah was left alone with David and Constance. They sat together quietly, exhausted and happy. David held Sarah's hand. I'm so proud of you, he said. Not just for tonight, for everything, for never giving up, for taking care of me, for finding your way back, for being brave enough to share your story. You're the strongest person I know. Sarah leaned her head on her brother's shoulder. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You gave me a reason to survive, and then you gave me permission to live again. Thank you." Constance watched them with tears in her eyes. "You two are going to make me cry again. I've already ruined my makeup once tonight." She laughed and wiped her eyes carefully. "Sarah, I've worked with a lot of musicians in my career. Talented people. Successful people. But I've never been as proud of anyone as I am of you tonight. Not just because you played beautifully, but because you turned pain into art. You turned struggle into strength. You showed the world that it's never too late to reclaim your dreams." Later that night, after all the congratulations and celebrations, Sarah stood alone on the empty Carnegie Hall stage. The building was dark and quiet now. The audience was gone. The flowers had been collected. The piano sat silent. But Sarah could still feel the energy of the evening, the magic of music connecting thousands of people, the power of sharing her story, the healing that came from transforming pain into beauty. She walked to the piano and sat down one more time. She did not play. She just sat there with her hands resting on the keys. She thought about the girl she used to be, the child prodigy with limitless potential. She thought about the young woman who lost everything and had to start over. She thought about the piano teacher in a cramped apartment, wondering if she had made the right choices. She thought about all the versions of herself that led to this moment. This night, this victory. "I did it," she whispered to the empty hall. "I really did it." And somewhere Sarah liked to believe her parents heard her. They saw her. They knew what she had accomplished. They knew that their daughter had not just survived. She had thrived. She had taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into something beautiful. She had let the music save her. And in doing so, she had saved herself. Sarah stood up from the piano and walked off the Carnegie Hall stage for the last time that night. But it would not be her last time on that stage. She would be back, many times, because this was not the end of her story. This was just the beginning, the real beginning. After years of false starts and detours and setbacks, Sarah Mitchell had finally become who she was always meant to be. A pianist, an artist, a survivor. A woman who refused to let circumstances define her. A woman who fought her way back to her dreams and then shared those dreams with the world. And that, Sarah thought as she left the hall and stepped out into the cool New York night, was the greatest triumph of all. Not the applause or the success or the recognition, but the knowledge that she had stayed true to herself, that she had honored her gift, that she had turned humiliation into inspiration and pain into purpose, that she had let music heal her broken heart, and then used that healed heart to create more music, more beauty, more meaning. Sarah looked up at the Carnegie Hall marquee one more time. Her name was there in lights. Sarah Mitchell, pianist, composer, artist, dreamer, fighter, survivor. She was all of those things, and tomorrow she would be even more, because this was just the beginning, and the best was yet to come.